Today, since we're talking about casting, I wanted to honor Susham Bedi, who was an actor, writer, Hindi teacher at Columbia, and generally a very involved person in the South Asian creative community in New York for decades and decades. It's often hard to cast older actors who are seniors because the people who immigrated here didn't have that background necessarily. But she was one of the prominent people who was in several films like The Big Sick, for example, and stage plays. And her own daughter, Purva Bedi, is a famous actor, also has a big creative community in New York. I first met Susham over 20 years ago when I had just graduated from Oberlin. We were putting together the first South Asian arts festival called Diasporadics, and it was like a multicultural festival. Vijay Iyer, the pianist, was curating the music, and Bushra Rahman, the writer, came and read poetry for the first night. Diasporadics was the first South Asian American arts and activism festival. It was inspired by Diasporadics, which was a festival in Toronto. The curating committee was Sunaina Mehra, who is now at UC Davis and has written a lot about South Asian American studies. Deepa Purohit, who's now an acclaimed playwright. Sharmila Desai, who is a yogi and dancer. Naresh Fernandez, who is a journalist who went on to launch Time Out in India. Natasha Singh, who is a poet and professor. Madhu Kaza, who is a visual artist. Mohan Sikka, who is a writer and a consultant for NGOs. And Shabana Coelho, who after that I worked for her. She was a producer at PBS, and we made the seminal documentary South Asians in New York for PBS, Channel 13. People from all over the country came to this festival to perform or just attend and celebrate the South Asian creative and alternative communities. We had meetings at Susham Bedi's apartment, which was half a block away from Columbia University, and she was always very welcoming and friendly and a nice person. And she'd be like a typical auntie and put out snacks and make tea for everybody. A lot of us, like our parents, didn't want us to go into the creative arts, so she was like a maternal figure in the community. And you'll find it's hard to do casting for the senior age group, which is why Aziz Ansari cast his own parents, for example, or you have to get people from India or from the Pakistani soap operas who have name recognition. I decided to cast Susham because she looked like she could be Mithu's mother, and they had worked on some projects together also, and she was really funny. People around the world really laughed at all of her performances and jokes, and sometimes we were shooting very late nights until 3 and 4 in the morning, which is hard for some seniors, but she always was really with it and remembered her lines and everything. And then sadly, she was ill for the last year. 2019, she had been in and out of the hospital, and then she was in the hospital and was in the first wave of March 2020, the COVID wave. We went through the whole thing of the remote funerals and that whole experience. Sadly, she was part of that. So I just wanted to remember her as one of the pioneers in the South Asian creative community and somebody who contributed a lot to Diwal'Oween.